I'm just starting to assemble the basic levels of dimension and the stuff that's going to be in it. It's primarily dealing with either flight or the idea of ascension. So I'm using that as a grounding for this travel box, sort of, which over here will have a light component with layers of their family history. So this area is lobbed off and there'll be a light box here. This whole thing is dropped into the box. And for this one, I'm still not really resolved, but it is going to have this center panel, which will be cut and dropped into the box, with light coming to the left and the right, illuminating two little boxes created on either side of it. This 800-year-old Peruvian fabric that I got from my Quechua friends, and we're putting the brooch on that. So it's just as a foundation for the brooch. So here I'm going with primarily, like, some instrumentation, some directional things that relate to the mind.
So this one we'll be conservative with.
Yeah.
And just enough to get things stuck down and not enough that it's going to go crazy. Big thing is just keeping the even pressure down, so we'll just sort of wing it.
Yeah, I can see it. Oh, yeah. Oh, great.
Wow.
Oh, it literally lifts it up and cascades down.
It flows.
And now, so there's going to be a light box way behind there, and this will be glowing. So this has a real beautiful, just a natural. And again, this is the moon drum for the Souls piece. It resides at the very top of the whole installation. I'm just about to put in the LED lights. It'll be dimmable so they can program the intensity. And it's not intended to be played. It's a drum that instead just resides as the moon. So I'm putting in a ribbon of LEDs on the inside bottom of the smaller circle inside the drum, because these end up being really bright. I'm really amazed at this. And it's interesting stuff to work with because it's just a tape, adhesive on the back. So here, the first thing we encounter is a bull roar. It's based on an Australian bull roar, but it's made out of cedar from my forest. So I made it and then did the painting. But I have spun this one. It makes a beautiful sound. And traditionally, they're used in Australia for calling the spirits of the animals they're hunting and or their own clan. Well, first I should address the map, because this area of the spirit box encounters the Six Nations people. It has the sacred hoop of the Six Nations and the four directions in the background and behind it. We also see a really strong vertical thrust showing the red path, the straight way the way of the arrow. And I have, just for contrast, I have an interesting arrowhead aiming down, and it happens to be aiming down at a little beadwork canoe, and inside the canoe is some beaver pelt. The beaver was hunted and skinned and tanned by Joe Wawadi, who is Saul Wawadi's brother. Joe Wawadi's a close friend. And right beside that, we have a Panari medicine stamp from the Amazon. These people, the men use these square rectangular stamps on their bodies, and the women use circular stamps. And these are meant to empower the body. In this case, it has a jaguar in the very bottom of it, but empower the body and protect it from the dangers of the jungle. I've acquired a collection of those, and I wanted to include one of my Panari stamps in this. In front of it all, we have this spirit figure. Now, this spirit figure represents all nations, all men, no one nation, but all. And he's holding red feathers. The background is the Peterborough petroglyphs. It's a tiny part of the panel that includes more than 1,600 glyphs. It's now contained in a building, and I've been fortunate enough for the last 2 decades to do many moon ceremonies there, sometimes intertribal gatherings featuring people from various continents, other times just a small gathering of friends. Now, speaking of this, I have always been fascinated with Newgrange and the sacred Celtic sites, and one of the overriding motifs of the entire project is water. So I've incorporated the threefold aspect of water that you find on the carved into petroglyph into Newgrange in the key front panel. There's a big stone right at the entrance, and that represents the liquid, vapor, and solid nature of water, or the sacred Trinity, because the Celts' Trinity was superimposed into the Christian Trinity. I believe it had more to do with water myself. So I've tried to give this this simple object, a bone that you would find in the forest or near a farm, and I've tried to give it some spiritual relevance by painting an interpretive dot painting. Directly below that, we have a little box. It represents man, all races of man coming to the center, the unified spirit. It reminds me of Leonardo's picture of man in many ways, the proportions, the 5 proportions fitting within the circle. As we open that, well, there's a few things. There's a clay stamp of a cartouche. This cartouche below here. I've always been quite interested in Egyptology, and because Doug had some experiences in Egypt, I wanted to address that. And what this sort of map cartographic looking thing does is it shows the geometry of the Great Pyramid itself. The prime meridian, the dead center point of the Great Pyramid, was aligned with the stars Pleiades at noon on March 21st. Now that's the time when those pyramids don't cast any shadow. It happens twice a year, both on the vernal equinox and the autumnal equinox, but sun is directly overhead. And that's why the pyramid at Giza was positioned where it is. It also contains the geometry of the sacred 3-4-5 triangle, which is the geometry within the Great Pyramid itself, and all classical architecture. So all of Greek architecture is based on that 3-4-5 relationship. Over to the right of the mannequin, we have this large agate slice, this particular one from Brazil, but I just love the intrusion of the crystal and these spots. It's just beautiful. And when it's illuminated, it has a gorgeous yellowy ochre glow behind this female figure. Now this wooden figure represents woman, the spirit of woman, dance, creative, birth, all of those wonderful magical properties that we all know women have. So this is a machine pipe that Doug has supplied. I soaked it in tobacco juice to stain it, as he didn't smoke it very much. Right near there, we have MTI Technologies. I'd done a project for them, an annual report, and this is one of their computer chips, so a silicon circuitry. I just like the sort of fence-like look to it in front of the light. And then I have this little simple magnifying glass helping hand. If you come around the side of the magnifying glass, you'll see that that's a bismuth crystal. That's a natural occurring crystal. This particular one was grown in a laboratory, and when you see the geometry of it, you see Mayan temples, a lot of Greek architectures within it. And so again, it's just one of the patterns of creation that had influenced architects very early on. The clamp here is actually holding a water vessel with water from the Blue Nile, the Nile proper, Lake Victoria, a river in South Africa, Machu Picchu, the water from the King's Chamber in Machu Picchu, water from the Warsaw Caves and the Peterborough petroglyphs, as well as waters from Lake Chilko in the Namaya Valley in BC, and Martin River up by Tobermory in that area. And all of my waters, in fact, are there. We also have 10,000-year-old water from the Peterson Ice Shelf that cleaved off of Greenland and was floating by Labrador the year that I was working up there, and I gathered some of that water as well. Hi, Brian.
Hello, Paul.
What the hell you doing?
Oh, we're just puttering. Actually, we're getting ready to mount the kayak here, which is a very exciting portion of your installation here. And we've measured carefully